2020 at officially 9:06, so we can have the council members turn on their video so we can confirm that they are present and we can commence our regular scheduled meetings.
Council President, I'm here.
Thank you, Council Vice President. We hear you loud and clear. All right, we have Councilmember Bredefield, Chavez, Councilmember Esparza, Soria, Carbasio, you guys online? All right, we have Councilwoman Soria, Councilmember Esparza, Carbasi. All right, Council, there we are. Looks like we have a full slate. City Clerk, would you please call roll call?
Councilmember Bredefield,
Here.
Councilmember Chavez,
Here.
Councilmember Esparza,
Present.
Councilmember Kravasi,
Here.
Councilmember Soria,
Here.
Council Vice President Capriolio.
I'm here sheltering in my home as I've been doing for
Okay,
quite.
glad to have you. President
Thank
Arias.
you.
Present. All right, next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Gavin, do we have our video?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gavin. With that, we will move on to City Clerk. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, there are. The first change is an additional proclamation of Black Lives Matter, sponsored by Council Members Kavasi, Esparza, the mayor, and the city manager. The next change is item 1A on the agenda, the approval of the minutes for June 11th and the regular meeting of June 11th and the special meeting of June 11th. That's going to be continued to June 25th meeting for approval. Under the item 1S, council boards and commissions, there's a correction to the census committee. The members should be Council President Arias, Council Members Esparza, and Karbasi. The next change is item 5A under closed session. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, case name is State of California, X Rail versus Selco Partnership. That item is being removed from the agenda. Those are all the changes I have.
Thank you, City.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Before we go there, do we have any changes from the council?
Yeah, Council President, did you get the items that I wanted to pull for discussion?
Yes. All those items pulled. City Clerk, can you read the items that
Sure.
are being pulled for discussion from consent?
Okay, the first one is item 1N, actions pertaining to the proposed substantial amendment 2019-03 to 2019-2020 annual action plan that's pulled by Councilmember Soria. The next one is item 1P, as in Paul, actions pertaining to COVID-19 response and mobile heal project pulled by Councilmember Chavez. The next item is item 1Q, a resolution limiting the filling of positions, raises, and promotion was pulled by Councilmember Karbasi, Chavez, and Soria. Next item is item 1K, Resolution authorizing the Department of Public Works to submit grant applications totaling up to $11 million in request for funding to the California Department of Transportation Active Transportation Program Cycles 5 call for projects. That was pulled by Councilmember Soria. Those are all the items that have to be pulled from the consent.
Thank you. Council, are those correct, or would you like to withdraw any of your items pulled?
That's correct for me.
All right, thank you all. Then with that, I will consider a motion to approve the agenda as outlined by the city clerk.
Motion.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilmember Chavez, second by Council President Capriolio. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefeld, Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio,
Yes.
President Arias,
Yes.
Councilmember Bredefeld.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry, yes.
thank you. No.
Thank you. Council, with that, I'd like to turn over the floor to our mayor, Lee Brand, who has a resolution, a proclamation for the Liz Harrison Day. Mayor Brand, I believe you have the floor, and Mark is gonna be helping.
I'm here, yeah, thank you. Good morning. So we have another respected journalist who has decided to hang up the teleprompter and retire at the top of their career. Congratulations to ABC 30's venerable news anchor, Liz Harrison, on her 38-year television career covering the stories that matter. I remember stopping by her house when I was walking precincts when I was running for council in 2008. I was surprised to see her at the front door, but I wasn't surprised to see her by her insightful comments, her ability to ask the right questions about my campaign platform, and hopefully she voted for me. Through the years, we've watched Liz report on issues that showcased her strong sense of community, focusing on faith-based stories, consumer report features, and medical issues that touched her personally. Liz, you've walked us through your battles with breast cancer and your recent diagnosis of the coronavirus, and we all know that you'd beat the odds and come back even stronger. All along your journey as an award-winning reporter and co-anchor of Action News, you've always found a way to give back to the community that you love so much. And so I'm pleased to announce that today is Liz Harrison Day in the city of Fresno. Give her a hand. A virtual hand at that. So City Clerk, would you please read the proclamation?
Whereas Liz Harrison joined the ABC 30 news team in Fresno in 1982 and has served as her community as an award-winning reporter and co-anchor of Action News Midday and Action News Live at 4. And whereas her reporting has specialized in faith-based and community-related stories, covering consumer reports and medical issues, and giving a voice to the voiceless throughout the Central Valley. And whereas Liz won an Emmy Award in 2010 for excellence in reporting for a story on how our military servicemen and women trained for the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And whereas for her decades of high-quality broadcasting, she was inducted into the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, Northern California Chapter, Silver Circle, honoring her years of excellence in journalism. And whereas Liz attended the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, and graduated from the University of Florida, University of Florida with a degree in broadcasting. And whereas Liz Harrison retired on June 12, 2020, after a distinguished career covering important events that have happened in the Central Valley. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, Mayor Lee Brand, and the Fresno City Council congratulate Liz Harrison on her retirement and do hereby proclaim June 18, 2020 to be Liz Harrison Day in the city of Fresno.
Thank you, City Clerk. Congratulations, Liz. Is there any comments from the rest of the council on congratulating our great reporter from ABC 30?
That's okay.
I think we're shy today. That's all.
It's the internet delay, Liz. It's not personal. It's Comcast is a little slow today.
Well, I for one, am really glad to hear that you're staying in Fresno. You are really a part of this community. You're a big part of the pulse of the community. And I do want to thank you for your courage and also sharing about, what you're doing when you contracted COVID. And it can happen to anybody. And I think it helps us to learn that the people we care about in our community, like you, can get it like anyone else, and that we have to be safe. And not everyone will have the courage to come out and say that. I am very grateful. I think you made it easier for us to express to folks how dangerous COVID really is.
Thankfully, I had a very, very minor case, but I think many of the cases of COVID are minor as opposed to severe. We only hear about the ones that are severe and the people that have to get hospitalized.
Thank you. Any other council members before we let Liz get back to her real job?
Yeah, no, Council President Luis Chavez here. Just wanted to congratulate you, Liz. Great career, long time in the business. I'm sure you've seen the business change quite a bit. And I remember as a kid watching you on TV, and we're starting to have the new generation come on board. But I got to be honest, they gotta work that trust factor up, especially right now. But you were somebody that when you did a report and analysis, we trusted that. And so my family's been watching you for a number of years, and we just want to wish you well on your next endeavor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. And before we close, Liz, I do want to add this. ABC 30 is known for one of being the most watched news station in the Valley, but it's also the most respected. And it's based on the foundation of integrity and the legacy that reporters like you have established in this community. And whether we grew up listening to Graciela in Spanish and then to you and Graciela later in English, the one thing remained constant was that you always maintain your integrity and your ability to communicate the facts, and know that that has set a very strong foundation. Channel 30 continues to be the most watched and the most respected for the reasons of you and many like you. So we wish you the best, and we thank you for the decades of holding the city and others like us accountable to the public. It's been a great service to our community, and know that it doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We always had a joke around the newsroom where we said people wanted to be on ABC 30 unless it was not a good story about them, because they knew that everybody in the Valley would be watching ABC 30. Yeah. So if you made it onto ABC 30, you made it.
That is still the case. With that, Councilmember Bredefield.
Yeah, Liz, I also want to acknowledge the great service you've done for the city. You've shown the excellence in journalism, and we have an ongoing, those in elected office have an ongoing tension with journalists and people who follow us. And like those of us here, there are people that we respect and those that we don't. And you've always been somebody for me that I've always respected. You've done a phenomenal job for decades. And unlike Chavez, I wasn't a little boy watching you. I'm much older. And so I was watching you as an adult. And I've always seen the great work that you've done. You being a cancer survivor, you and I share that, and we've talked about that. And you've done so much to help people who struggle with that disease and horrid disease. And we and I both know what that means. And so I want to thank you. I also, like Lee, came to your door many times campaigning, and you were always very kind to me. And I greatly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in the community. I know you're not going anywhere. And I wish you many, many years of happiness and health.
Thank you, Gary. And I'll continue to message you on Facebook.
You got it.
I know you look forward to that, huh?
Love it.
With that, our Council Vice President has the floor.
Thank you. Liz, I join in all those comments. That's just scratching the surface of the impact you've had over the years in our community, as well as your station. We can't thank you enough for all the contributions you've made and all the stories you brought forward and all the life examples you've shown us, and the strength that you've shown our community is unbelievable. And I can't express enough appreciation for all those factors and many more about you. So you are a blessing to our community, and we are very fortunate to keep you here And we'd like to have you spread the word to everyone. Come to Fresno, stay in Fresno. We're a great community, and you're a great example of what our community can provide. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you, Liz, again for your years of service and for being somebody that we and every journalist in town can aspire to be.
Thank you guys so much. And gals. I appreciate it. And I'll be watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, council, our next resolution proclamation is sponsored by our mayor, our council member Carbasi, and Councilmember Esparza. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
You want me to go first, guys? I started out with a relatively simple affair that got a little complicated along the way, but in the end, I think it came out really well. It's an opportunity to celebrate Black Lives Matter and the display of unity in the city of Fresno in support. And so today, I think 11:45, we're going to have everybody out in the front on expressing ourselves. So with that, I'll let Mike or Nelson take it from there.
Sure. In the aftermath of the George Floyd killing and the national conversation we're having, Fresno has also had that conversation. The difference is we have been so blessed by our community to have a peaceful conversation. But it's important that people have an outlet where they can express themselves. I'm one of those people where my paintbrush, my outlet are my words. Not everyone has that ability. Some people, while they may feel frustration, their outlet is being able to express themselves through art. And I'm so proud of this city for coming together, and my colleagues as well, to support our Black community as they wish to voice how they feel in a peaceful manner, in a creative manner. That's exactly what we should be doing in a community like Fresno. I think that, and also I want to give a big shout out DJ K-Rich and DeAngelique, because we may not, any other day of the week agree on some issues, but there are fundamental issues we do agree on, that opportunities shouldn't be for the few, they should be for the many. And we should be working together to make sure everyone has a real opportunity to thrive in this community in Fresno. So I want to thank you so much. If it wasn't for our community, if it wasn't for our police department coming together to have peaceful protests and peaceful avenues for expression, we wouldn't be the community that we are today. Thank you very much. Councilman Esparza?
Yeah, I'll very much echo the comments of my colleagues. I think the young people here in the city deserve just an incredible shout out for leading the way. I mean, it truly has been you folks, leading the conversation, carrying the proposals and reforms towards tangible action. That's us putting it in our court. And of course, the peaceful demonstration, a very large demonstration you initiated downtown. I want to thank you folks. It's because of you folks that we've translated that national energy into a local movement, and recognizing that Black lives in our community matter as they do everywhere throughout our country and throughout the world. Taking something that was previously, unfortunately, politically charged and really translating it into a language where everyone understands this is not a political issue, it's a moral one. It's a matter of life and death, right and wrong, and morality. You deserve all the kudos for leading the way, continuing to lead the way. The hope is that the movement that we're seeing right now here locally is going to translate into tangible policy actions and reforms on the part of this body here in the city of Fresno. So thank you, and please keep up the good work and continue to hold us as elected officials accountable.
Any other councilman wishing to address our proclamation?
Council President,
Go ahead.
I'd like to just say a few words. I know that I wasn't a sponsor, but I did join and support in signing the proclamation. I do believe this is an important symbolic step. I've said it publicly. I put it on my social media. I hope that beyond supporting Black Lives Matter, now everyone, because I know a year ago, it was a lot more controversial to say Black Lives Matter for folks, that we begin to demonstrate as we're approving our budget and as we're looking at policies to reform the racial injustice that has plagued our community, that this is the first step in demonstrating that we're going to do right by the Black community and by the brown community that has suffered from the systematic injustices that have not only plagued the city of Fresno, but our nation as a whole. And so I am proud to be able to stand with all my colleagues and the mayor, and that we've allowed a community to come together, young people. It's been so inspiring and reinvigorating in the fight that we're in. We're in a fight to make sure that we have racial justice, not only in Fresno, but in our nation.
Thank you, Councilwoman. If there are no other council members wishing to speak to this item, I will just give you some final comments. You know, the murder of George Floyd has had an impact across the world and in our country. His murder gave us the most horrid example of police brutality. Today, as our council and mayor stand in support of Black Lives Matters, the calls for justice, and the artwork happening outside City Hall, I want to take a moment to highlight how much has changed in the last month alone. I hope we all recognize that just 2 years ago, this artwork, this conversation wouldn't have been an option because it would have been interpreted as anti-police. As a candidate for this office, I remember being asked by local law enforcement leaders if I supported the false narrative of Black Lives Matters or if I stood with them. They weren't pleased with my response and they opposed my candidacy as a result. I believe today what I believed then, and that is that their question said more about the lack of empathy for the lived experiences of too many of our diverse neighbors. Today, I'm proud that the council and the mayor and millions of Americans, including police officers, understand the meaning and the urgency of Black Lives Matters movement. People are simply calling for unity and policing that truly protects and serves everyone. So nobody in our community has to think twice before calling for help when they are in danger. So I want to recognize that everybody in Fresno has done so in a united way, in a peaceful way, and that we finally have changed the narrative and focus on the real issues that the Black Lives Matter movement is undertaking and not simply politicizing it to create bigger dividing spectrums of our community. With that, council, I want to thank you for your time. Any other comments by the sponsors of this proclamation?
Yeah.
Councilman Bradford, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just want to echo a couple of things too. You know, I've said this before that the protest that took place that was sponsored by the Fresno State NAACP was the example for the rest of the nation. And 3,500 people got together. It was passionate. They spoke volumes about their feelings, and it was done well. And it was set the example, the model for the rest of the country. And I echo about people coming together, there being unity. I look forward to the commission and the recommendations that come forward. And again, I also want to recognize that we have a law enforcement that the majority of our men and women who put on that uniform, men and women who are of color, who are Black and brown and white, always serving our community. That's the majority of our law enforcement. They want our city and our communities to be safe. And I think everybody recognizes that. The people who committed the murder with George Floyd, they are the anomaly. They're not the majority of the men and women serving. And so as we all come together, let's remember that. Let's remember we're all one community. We're all one human race, and we all want the same things: equal opportunity for our kids and our families, and to be safe and to thrive in a healthy community. And that's what we all want. So I'm very appreciative of the effort and look forward to the future. Thank you.
And we do have the proclamation here, and we have all signed it, including the mayor, and we will be presenting it to you later today.
Hey, Council President, did you see my hand raised?
No, not yet, council member, but you have the floor.
All right. Well, appreciate the work that Councilmember Carbasi, the mayor, Councilmember Esparza have been doing. I think this is a great start. I said this before that, you know, for us to acknowledge and start the conversation saying that, yes, Black Lives Matter, I think is significant. But I also want to remind my colleagues and the mayor that this is really the beginning of the conversation with regards to the work that needs to happen, right? Once we get through with the police reform conversation, we need to start looking at what does equal opportunity and access look like for economic development, for workforce development, for health initiatives in our community. We know that that is still a big challenge in our community. What does the educational attainment levels look like in our own city for African American and Latino students? So that, to me, really is the big picture of the conversation. It took us a while to get to this point, but I really see the community coming together, everybody being on the same page and driving this. And you saw that with the demonstrations that occurred. You saw that with the community that's coming together. I just want to thank those that have been out there pushing for a while. Again, this is the start of the conversation that we're going to have. And I said this before, that it's a very uncomfortable conversation, but let's get comfortable together, because I think this is something that's worth it, so that when Councilor Chavez is not here, or Arias, or Bossy, or anybody else, we're still having that conversation. That, to me, is really at the heart of what we're trying to get through here. Institutional policy changes that outlast politicians is what the goal should be with this next phase of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. All right, council member Vice President Capriolo, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Council President. I join in the comments that have been made on this issue, and I want to thank the sponsors for stepping forward and us all endorsing this and continuing our efforts to bring the matter into the light and having us work on it as a team, as a unit, all together, in addition to those in our fantastic city of Fresno. So congratulations to the sponsors. Great job. We'll continue to work as a team, and I look forward to participating. So again, congratulations to everyone involved in this particular ceremonial presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, council. It looks like we're done with our council, and now I'd like to invite you at noon to the artwork in the front, where the proclamation will be presented. If any of you are available to attend, just make sure you wear your mask and you don't pick up a paintbrush, because we're not that good at painting. So,
Council President, we don't want to give our guests here just the chance to say just a couple words on the record here. I mean, I know there will be a more formal person thing.
We will go ahead and unmute. There you go.
EJK Rich, you have the floor.
Hey, first and foremost, I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the community for coming together and acknowledging that there is an issue with systemic racism and obviously the untimely passing of George Floyd with the issue of police brutality. I think it is an amazing first step. I think that, like it's been said by a lot of folks on here right now, that we've said that, this is a starting point. This is the first step into many more conversations. And I'm a firm believer that you have to get uncomfortable before you get comfortable. So I just like to say thank you from myself on behalf of the community. There's a whole bunch of people out here. It's a positive energy. And I think that's important for healing. And I think it's important for the future of Fresno, California, to continue to set the example for the rest of the world. Because like you said, the peaceful protest that we had a couple weeks ago literally has become the model that is being used literally across the nation now. So I think Fresno is not just, little Fresno or a little area in between the Bay and LA. It's no, we're Fresno, California, and we have something to say. So I appreciate everyone for coming together to declare this annual proclamation of Black Lives Matter Day. So I'd like to say thank you once again, and the community truly appreciates it.
Thank you. You play some music out there. You can hear it. Thank you, council. There we go. Thank you. All right, council. With that, we will proceed with the council meeting. We're done with ceremonial presentations. Do council members have any reports or comments? If so, raise your hand and we can go council member by council. Let me start with Council Vice President Capriolo. Council Vice President Capriolo, comments?
Thank you. I have lots of comments, but I'll save them for another day. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Brevity. Council Member Esparza, you have the floor.
Yes. I'm going to take this opportunity in a second to amend a couple of my motions on the budget floor, since this is all one continuous budget meeting. But before I jump into that, I did just want to, here on the record, acknowledge the Supreme Court decision this morning that has effectively upheld DACA. The city of Fresno stood with our dreamers, throughout that process formally. We continue to do so, and just wanted to continue to communicate to dreamers that we as a city continue to stand with you. And today's a good day because of that. I know a lot of those dreamers are the same folks and allies who are standing with in tandem with the Black Lives Matter movement. So just wanted to put that out there for the record. For my budget motions that I put out so far, I want to amend the firefighter motion that I made to add 3 firefighters. So the amendment there will be to change from adding 3 firefighters, specifically to authorizing 3 new firefighter captain positions. And what that will do within the fire department is that will allow the fire department to move 3 existing captains into safety officer positions, as recommended in the SART report that was referenced at the meeting, at the budget hearing in which we discussed the fire department. The reason for the change here is, again, to fulfill that requirement, but the training classes that they have for the new firefighters that are hired usually come in larger numbers, and roughly at number 9. The motion to add 3 would not meet that requirement, obviously. And so this is a bit of a pivot. We're still adding 3 positions, but this will allow for a better use of the existing resources and adding this marginal level of resources to the fire department. Councilmember Bredefield, I know you were my second on this. Are you amenable to this change?
Yeah, and I just want to make sure. So I know the fire department is interested in the safety officer. So adding you're saying the 3 fire captains addresses that issue.
Correct. Yeah. So I mean, we wanted to add firefighters. If we had the SAFER grant, that would have got us to 9, and they would have had a whole training class. So what we're doing here instead, we're authorizing 3 new captain positions. They will take 3 existing captains. They'll be full-time safety officers, and then they will promote from within into the
safety officer position.
Yeah, to the captain.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
So the motion itself is pretty simple. We're authorizing 3 additional firefighter captain positions.
Yeah, I certainly second.
Fantastic. And then the second motion I want to amend, after having a meeting with the administration on advanced peace and the efforts and the progress they've made so far, working in tandem with the advocates, of course, who have been fighting for this program. There is some chance that we may not need the full $300,000 annually. The way they've worked out the financing plan with some of our outside partners. So I'd like to go ahead and amend my motion. The city of Fresno will commit to supporting the Fresno Advanced Peace Project at a minimum of $125,000 per year for 3 years, but also up to $300,000 a year for 3 years if the current grant applications with the state are not funded. So we're committing a minimum of $125,000, but we do reserve the right to go up to $300,000 per year if some of that outside financing does not materialize. I believe Councilmember Soria, I believe you were the second on that. Are you amenable to these changes based on the information we were provided yesterday?
Yes, I'm amenable to the changes. Was it that amount per year? I thought it was a 3-year allocation.
So we're committing for 3 fiscal years to give a minimum of $125,000 or a maximum of $300,000. That's per fiscal year, starting this coming fiscal year.
I accept the amendment.
Fantastic. That will conclude my council member comments.
Councilmember Esparza, as our practice, can you email those motions to the city clerk?
Sure.
So that they are on the same page with us. Councilwoman Soria, you have the floor.
Can you skip me for now? Thank you.
Right, is there any other budget motions that the council members like to make since we're on this section of the agenda?
Are we making only budget motions now? Can we make them later?
Make them throughout the day and into the budgets adopted. But
Okay.
for today, I'd like to see if there's any other. All right, seeing none, I will make motions during the comment
Council
period.
President,
Council Vice President, you have the floor.
yes, I didn't realize this is the time for motions or amendments. I have a few motions to add. I'd like to make a motion to allocate $200,000 for a tot lot and ADA improvements to Toll House Park. I'd like to get a second on that.
Second,
Thank you. Toll House Park is a green space, literally. It's been there for decades. It has no amenities. The neighborhoods surrounding it have been asking for some form of improvement for years. So this would facilitate that improvement. Second, a motion on the El Dorado Park Playground misting system. We need to address the cooling of the kids at the playground system there. There's kids from the El Dorado Park neighborhood. That's their only outlet in the area for exercise and getting together and for some training and experience with post-school education. I know we're on a hold right now, but that's the area that they have the ability to continue their maturity and growing up. This is one of the most impoverished areas, and it has very little green space. And this would help during the hot days. So the motion is to facilitate a playground misting system at the El Dorado Park tot lot. And I'll get these things in writing. Do I have a second on that?
Councilmember Caparillo, can you repeat the motion for us, please? I heard El Dorado Park and the misting system, but if you could be more specific, I think it would be helpful.
Well, the tot lot at El Dorado Park needs a misting system to create, to make it cooler and more enjoyable for the kids in that area, because it's impoverished. It's CDBG ultimate eligibility for all that. But so the motion is put a playground misting system into El Dorado Park tot lot.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Second.
You're welcome. Thank you. And then at Vinland Park, we've done some great work there in recent history with the splash pad and other things. So I make a motion to provide additional lighting in the northwest corner of Vinland Park. It's so dark there that people are afraid to go into that area due to the homeless population and others that try to take over the darkness in the park. So the motion is to address additional lighting at Vinland Park, or specifically at the northwest corner. Is there a second on the motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. Next, I have a couple more. Next is the Discovery Center. I think everyone is aware of the Discovery Center on Winery, just right near the airport. During my time as a council member, I've worked hard to make a lot of improvements to the Discovery Center. And one thing I keep hearing about is their need for an exterior bathroom. And the little ones, when it's important to use the restroom, they need to use it and use it now. The facility may not be open, but an exterior bathroom or restroom would be greatly appreciated. So I'd like to make a motion to address the issue of an exterior bathroom at Discovery Center.
Here's what we want every.
Second.
is there a second for Council Vice President Capriolio's motion? All right.
I can't hear you guys.
Yeah, Councilmember, there's no second for that motion. Would you like to bring it back
Yes,
at a later time? Perfect.
yes.
Thank you.
Two more motions. This is a joint motion with Member Carbasi and myself, for the administration to explore adding 7 neighborhood police officers. The basis for the motion is this would assist our POP officers and would enable them to work more in the neighborhood. We're always talking about community policing. This would be directly affiliated and with the neighborhoods, trying. It's hard for our pop officers to reach all the neighborhoods, given that they are broken by 4 quadrants, to cover all districts. So each officer will be assigned to a district in an assigned area. The officer works with patrol officers, employees from our other city departments, work with business owners, and especially the citizens to identify and assist in ongoing problems that affect every area of every district in the city of Fresno. So that's a joint motion. Member Carbasi, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, these are for the community service officers, and I thank you, Council Vice President, for leading on this, and I second the motion.
That's what I wanted
Thank
to clarify. You're saying community service officers? And you said 7 of them? Okay.
Next is a motion regarding finance. So the motion be to, within 15 business days from the end of each fiscal year quarter, the City Council will receive a report that indicates the amount of attrition savings realized during the quarter on a department by department basis. And the estimated total attrition savings would be included in the current fiscal year budget. So following the first such report for a fiscal year, each subsequent report shall include the information from the prior quarters. So we can have a cumulative view of attrition savings that have been attained through that year. I can submit that to writing to the clerk. So it's just accountability and making us aware of the totality of the circumstances with attrition savings, et cetera.
Council Vice President, I'll second that motion. And it's complicated, so we'll look forward to your written version of it, but it makes sense to me.
Okay. All right, thank you much. And then I'd like to give direction on a couple more things I'm done. The direction would be for the administration to give an update on the paving of alleys in El Dorado Park, the paving project for the Fountain Way neighborhood. That's the northwest corner of Shields and Cedar. It's tucked away back in that area. It's been on the books for a long time. And most importantly, you've heard me talk about this for a long time, the status on the McKinley Trail. I teasingly say that I have a river, it's called the McKinley Ditch. So with that, we don't have a river, but of course we could have a trail alongside that area that would run from the airport, that is Clovis Avenue area, all the way toward Blackstone. And my particular concern is with people that are leaving the airport. As Kevin has told us on many occasions, literally millions of people come into Fresno via the international flights and local flights. So when they leave the airport, they don't see much, and we need to have that trail, especially along there, so newcomers to Fresno can see the beauty of our city and what that trail would represent. And then in the future, we need to pave McKinley Avenue. It's a washboard. It's awful. Again, people coming to our community for the first time or to visit or to do business here should have the best appearance possible for their initial arrival in our community. So those would be directions for the administration, and that's the extent of it for today, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Before I go to Councilwoman Soria, I'd like to make just 2 motions for the record. One motion is to fund $500,000 in CDBG funds to complete the historic Armenian Town restoration project. So if I can get a second.
Second.
Thank you, Member Cal Carbasi. And the next motion is to reappropriate the $1 million set aside from Darling to fund the Developing Across West Fresno Neighborhoods initiative submitted by Ms. Curry and the West Fresno leaders.
Second that.
Thank you, Councilmember Esparza. Councilwoman Soria, you have the floor now. If you're ready.
Is it me or Esparza?
You.
Okay, so I want to make a motion. I think these dollars already are in the status quo budget, which I think is not going to end up being a status quo budget given all the motions that have been made. So I want to motion that the $1 million that we had set aside for the Housing Trust Fund, that we make sure we bring a plan with those $1 million plus 50% of the RDA repayment that it comes to the city, 50% of the total funds. So it would be the $1 million plus the 50% of the RDA that are coming to our city because of all the housing dollars that used to come from the state, and bring the plan with the administration on how we will structure the Housing Trust Fund and begin implementing a plan to build more affordable and workforce housing in our community.
I'll second that motion.
And then, Council President, are we going to be able to make motions then throughout the day?
Yes, if you wish. I would rather that we wait to the end of the meeting. So we will take another stab at motions at the conclusion of the meeting before we go to closed session, just so that we continue the flow of the meeting. And of course, it'll continue at the next budget hearing on the 22nd and the final budget hearing on the 25th.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chavez, you have the floor. If you are,
I just wanted to know if, Vice President Capriolio has added if he would like a brand new airport while we're at it, added to that list.
Maybe to go with it.
No,
I just want to remind my colleagues that we're looking at a $39 million deficit. So let's be cautious. I know we all have a long list of projects that we want to get done, but let's be realistic, because I think pretty soon here we're about to get a very sobering conversation about what our finances look like. And I don't want to get caught in that space, but there'll be plenty of room for conversation with regards to the budget, the items that we listed, and looking forward to that.
Councilmember Chavez, thank you for saying that. And I think you've already had the sombering conversation about the budget and the deficit. So I appreciate you chiming in to say that, but we'll save that for next week.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez, and we'll make sure that the council doesn't fund any of your motions. So,
Hey, mine weren't multi-million projects, okay? but I can throw some motions out there if you guys want.
Thank you. And we all would like a runway paved in gold. So we'll reach for the moon and you know.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to get an airport in Southeast Fresno too, District 5 and all that.
Second. It's official now.
All right. So before we start making motions to eminent domain Councilmember Chavez's house for a new airport, let's proceed with the meeting. All right, council, let's go to consent items. The following consent items were pulled from consent. City Clerk, can you remind the council which ones were pulled?
Item 1K, 1N as in Nancy, 1P as in Paul, and 1Q.
Great. So with that, is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent calendar before I go to public hearing, to public comment?
Don't you want to go to the public first?
First, give me a motion to approve the remainder consent.
Motion by Capriolio.
Second by Councilmember Esparza. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to any of the consent items? We have Lisa Flores. You will be unmuted and you'll have 3 minutes to address the council on the consent calendar.
Actually, I wanted to thank you, Miguel, for making an allocation for the dog park. It is long overdue. And actually, you had me for loss of words for like half an hour. And I thought I was having a heart attack and went to heaven because I finally was able to secure funding to fix the wrong. And I thank you and your staff and other council members who have helped along the way, primarily Esmeralda and Gary. I had a lovely conversation with your office yesterday about dog park issues, and also too want to let the city council know that if you have any issues regarding dog parks, that the organizers of the Road and Park dog groups, we're here to provide feedback to let you guys know what will and most likely won't work at dog parks, since we have a cumulative experience of over basically 10 to 15 years at this point. once again, I thank you and I look forward to that line item being passed in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Any other members of the public wishing to address the council? Seeing none, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the council on unscheduled oral communications on anything not on the agenda? If so, please identify yourself and you'll be given 3 minutes to address council. Matthew, you are being unmuted. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, council member. My name is Matthew Woodward. I'm here as a regular citizen today who attends BPAC meetings pretty frequently. And I mean, I've heard of a lot of conversation about the airport today, and I was just a little curious. I'm just at least putting it out there, unless it's not on the plans, but what are the plans for long-term bike parking at the airport? I'm especially curious considering since the Midtown Trail is going to go right by the airport, if they're considering for the Fat Forward expansion, whether or not they're going to have some really good bike parking for residents who want to either ride to the airport and leave from there, or just make a quick ride to the airport and to say goodbye to some family who are leaving the city. I don't know, but if they're keeping that in mind. But personally, I think a couple bike racks and a parking garage would take up less space than a car parking there. Anyway, just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our unscheduled public communication and our public comments on the unscheduled items on the agenda. Is City Clerk, a roll call please for the remainder of the unscheduled
Consent.
of the consent.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Councilwoman Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio,
Yes.
President Arias.
yes.
7-0.
All right, thank you, City Clerk. With that, we will go to the first item that was pulled from consent, item 1K. Councilwoman Soria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. Is staff around? I don't see them.
City Manager, do you have staff prepared?
There we go.
Yep, we're here, and I have Scott here as well.
Mr. Mosier, thank you for being responsive.
So thank you, Director Mosier, for the meeting, and to also your staff that is working on this proposal. I did want to include as part of the motion. I think that it's a good project. Just for the sake of the public, we're looking at a quick build bike lane that connects downtown through my district on Palm Avenue all the way to Dakota. But Palm Avenue, as many of you guys know, there's the Big Garden area, and that's county. And so I would like us to work with the county to figure out how we connect the gap, which is from Dakota to South Shaw and Shaw on North Shaw, as you guys and Councilmember Carbasi, you're very familiar with that area. It has a bike lane going north. So this quick build bike lane will help connect us from the southern part of the city all the way to the San Joaquin River. So I believe it's going to be a great amenity, but I do really want to see the county come on board and partner with us so that we can build between Dakota and south of Shaw. So I'm going to motion for that. I have been in conversations with Supervisor Brandow, and they're going to be meeting with their Public Works Department today. So if we can circle back, if we do get them on board, I would like the grant to include the portion between Dakota and South Shaw to build the remaining of the quick build bike lane. And this doesn't have any general fund impact, or it would be strictly be funded by the grant, and the city would be the lead applicant, hopefully with the support of the county to do the entire quick build bike lane. So that would be my motion to support the item, contingent, well, not contingent, but and including the county, contingent upon them agreeing to enter into agreement with the city to work on that segment of the bike lane.
So I'm going to second that, so long as it's permissible in the grant. I think Councilmember Story and I have a very shared goal here. I'm also chair of the San Joaquin River Conservancy, and it's really important to me this entire city has access to that river. And Palm Avenue is a major north-south thoroughfare. So I appreciate Councilmember Soria's motion, and I'm gladly second that.
All right, the motion's been made, it's been seconded. As a bike rider who's been on Palm one too many times, I can attest to how dangerous it is. And the fact is, it's city and the county's fault for allowing it to exist for that long. So I'm looking forward to a solution. All right, there's been motion, has been seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Karbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio,
Yes.
President Arias.
Yes.
7-0.
Next item is 1N as in Nancy. Councilwoman Soria, you have the floor.
So who's taking the lead from the staff on this one?
Jennifer Clark. Jennifer, is your room unmuted? There she is.
Good morning. How are you? And also HSPs if you have specific questions.
Yeah, I know we've been working with H. Is he there with you?
No, he is not.
Okay.
He is on, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, just for the purpose of the public, can you briefly summarize what this item's doing?
Sure. So the council took action on May 14th to prepare to direct staff to prepare a substantial amendment to our emergency coronavirus emergency solutions grant funds of $2.1 million for coordination with the County of Fresno and the Fresno Madera Continuum of Care. And per that action, we've prepared this substantial amendment to the annual action plan. Additionally, in addition to that award will be housing opportunities for persons with HIV/AIDS, also coronavirus funds of $92,000 to provide COVID-19 related housing services for persons with HIV/AIDS. So those are the two actions that would be taken today. Both are to promote housing opportunities and to ensure that persons who otherwise would not be housed or have housing opportunities due to coronavirus have been accommodated.
Okay, and in terms of like the ESG dollars, can you speak to what we're going to get out of them in terms of housing or the units and for how long? This is all kind of COVID related, correct?
Right, it's all COVID related. For the specific number of units, I would defer to H on that.
Great. Hi, council members and Councilmember Soria, thank you for bringing this up. As you recall, we have joined in with our partners in the county, the COC and various community-based organizations to have a seamless COVID-19 homeless response joint funding plan. We invested our state money in the amount of $1,012,869 to kind of kick off this plan. That allowed us to put together about 518 beds, including 287 through RH Community Builders, 34 with Poverello House, some special beds in hotels that are designed for allowing for isolation and quarantine of those that are positive or waiting for tests, and that's 15 and 20 rooms, 40 with the Marjorie Mason Center, 50 trailers, 50 beds and trailers, and then 60 and 12 in the rural communities of Selma and Huron, respectively. Our dollars with this wave allows us to take all of those and some other services, including some major disinfecting services, some case management services, and extend those from the middle of June to the middle of September. So that's what these dollars are for. There's another wave of ESG dollars that we, in the amount of almost 9 million, that we have not done planning for yet. But so that's another topic. But this is the first wave of ESG COVID-1, they call it CV1 dollars. And what it simply does is it allows us to take those beds that we have been able to get people off of the streets and extend those through the middle of September.
Perfect. Thank you, H. I think that that's good for the public to know. That's why that's one of the reasons that I pulled it. I think that it's important, as especially, you know, some of our homeless advocates are thinking about, you know, what are we doing with these dollars that we're getting? There is an additional round that our subcommittee will be working with you to try to figure out the plan with those dollars. But at minimum, we know that the rooms that we have acquired from the original plan will be extended through September. This has been an issue that, you know, I've wrestled with in terms of how long will we house those individuals, because there was a lot of uncertainty on dollars.
Right.
I didn't want to be in the middle of the summer or in the middle of the holidays by the end of the year evicting folks. So we do have to figure out kind of the long-term solution, which is why, for me, the Housing Trust Fund is also very critical. It's going to allow us to draw additional dollars to really look at a permanent solution for more affordable, more workforce housing, and more stable housing for those experiencing homelessness. I want to thank you for working with Council President and I, and the other folks. I think Councilmember Bredefeld is also part of the subcommittee that has been working with you guys to have a better plan in addressing the homelessness issue here in our community. So I'll make a motion to move this item forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Councilwoman Soria, is there a first by Councilwoman Soria, second by Councilman Esparza? Roll call, please.
We need to go out to public, or we're good?
We're good.
Okay. Councilmember Bredefeld? Muted.
Yes.
Thank you.
He was taking a
Councilmember
nap.
Chavez? Councilmember Chavez?
I think he's trying to secure an airport.
Okay, Councilmember Esparza?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi?
Aye.
Councilmember Soria?
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio?
Yes.
President Arias?
Yes.
Is Gary back?
Yes.
Okay,
Gary
thank
said
you. 7-0.
Thank you. All right, next item is 1P as in Paul. Mr. Chavez, you have the floor with item 1P.
Yep, just had a couple of questions. I know a couple of my colleagues have met with folks over at UCSF, and so I'm looking at, I believe there's 3 phases for the agreement that we're working on with UCFS, and I just had some questions. I don't know if it's Tim Orman on, or maybe somebody from staff that had been working on this can answer the questions.
Yeah, Tim is on. Tim, can you unmute yourself, please?
And I also think that UCSF has joined us. I do see Brandy Nikaido online.
Yeah, Councilwoman, we've identified them and we will unmute them if there's questions for them.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, if Tim's not available, maybe we can ask them, Council President.
Hey,
Sure.
they're asking you questions right now.
All right, we have Dr. Peterson, who's been unmuted, and he's available for questions.
Great. Dr. Peterson, just a couple of quick questions with regards to the mobile. I noticed that there's 3 phases that these units would go through in serving the city of Fresno. So just a couple of clarifications. So UCSF would purchase and own and operate and maintain the vehicles, or would we do that?
UCSF would do that.
Okay. And then part of the work, the scope of work that you'll be doing would be obviously testing, tracing. Will there be other health services that you're going to be providing to the community?
Yes, we will be doing preventive services screening. We know what the comorbidities are that increase the risk of infection and severity of infection, and we will be providing screening for that. In addition, if that screening identifies people that need immediate access to healthcare, we will have telehealth capability built into those mobile units to be able to connect them with healthcare providers at that time. And then any patients that test positive, we will follow up with them and provide access to whatever healthcare they may need at the time the infection is identified.
Great. Now, and part of your professional capacity, does UCSF have access to the data that the county has with regards to tracking and tracing COVID positive cases by zip code, or is that not something that's available to you?
So currently, we have not seen that. I had a conversation with the county health officer last night who confirmed that he would be happy to have share that data from the epidemiologists in the county with us to facilitate that.
Okay, great. Because I think that's been one of the frustrations from not just myself, but other members on the council with regards to, for us to make these investments and be strategic, we really have to have access to that data. And they released a preliminary map last week that showed the southeast part of Fresno really having a lot more COVID positive cases. And that makes a lot of sense just because of the number of supermarkets and food industries that were deemed essential and could not shut down. And so I just want to make sure that part of this work really revolves around that data-driven system. A couple of questions. So for phase one, it says develop community relationships with organizations, churches. Have you identified those already, or are those still to be determined?
So we've had some initial conversation with Fresno Grows organization, as well as the organization that Dr. Tanya Pacheco at Fresno State is leading with the immigrant and Hispanic population. They are very much aligned with our plan, and we've had a couple of conversations just an hour ago with the people from the Drive Initiative about how we integrate into that. And we also, as Council President Arias knows, there was a screening done at the West Side Church of God that we participated in with others last Saturday and connected with the minister there who was more than willing to help collaborate with us on future events. So yes, we've started those conversations. We have some commitments. We also opened up this morning in the call on the Drive Initiative for any community-based.
Sure.
With us so that we can address exactly the issue that you're talking about.
Sure. No, and I appreciate the work the Drive Committee is doing, but they're more big picture policy work. I'm really more interested in the grassroots organizations that are already serving a lot of those communities. And specifically what you'll find is that a lot of the nonprofits focus their efforts in smaller geographic areas. And I want to put a couple of those on your radar with regards to Southeast to make sure that we're truly reaching the population that lives, works, and supports the businesses there. I would like to see some efforts work with Fresno Center, with Reading and Beyond. They've really been at the forefront in serving Southeast Fresno. And I want to make sure that those relationships are established by your organization, because I think those are the folks that are on the ground every single day doing food drives, health screenings, resource fairs. And so what I'll have my office do is reach out to you and send you some of those contacts so you can secure, and be more than happy to facilitate those for the work that you guys are doing.
I very much appreciate that.
For phase two, Doctor, what would that look like with regards to, because there's a lot of conversation about what a second wave would look like for the city of Fresno. I mean, obviously during phase one, we'll kind of set the framework for what that'll look like. But so I guess the question is, are we technically out of the first wave, or is it still going, or what is your assessment of that?
It's still going.
And then when do you anticipate that might, I know it's very subjective, but just to kind of get a sense of what the medical industry is looking at?
I think the crystal ball is broken on that, and this disease is truly novel. And whereas most respiratory viruses begin to die out in summer months, this one clearly is not. So I don't think we can look towards anything that suggests it's going to go down significantly without the continued efforts within the community.
Sure, but no, in conversations with one doctor and further in that field, it seems that efforts initially were essentially very successful in flattening curve. The only downside I've been explaining with that this is going to stretch out possibly into over next year, and I think that's going to be critical for the work that you're going to be doing and making sure that we're reaching those folks that are, one, vulnerable, but two, traditionally do not have access to medical care in our community. And that's very prevalent in Southeast Fresno, as you are very well familiar with. And so I'd just like to kind of keep the conversation going with you and be in close communication, because this is something that I think we're all going to have to be very involved in with regards to making sure that we're testing, but more importantly, tracing and preventing people from getting infected in the near future. Those were all the questions that I had. Appreciate the answers, and with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Councilmember, you've been seconded?
But, okay.
So, hold on. It's been made by Chavez, seconded by Soria. Next person on the queue is Councilmember Esparza.
Yeah, no, I was going to make the motion and just say supportive of this proposal. Interested in hearing what the rest of my colleagues have to say and offer as far as amendments. But I do want to thank Dr. Peterson for taking the time with me yesterday to really flesh out what this is going to look like and the benefits it's going to bring to communities just like mine.
Thank you. Before we go to more council member comments and amendments, let's go to Tim. Do you have anything to add to this conversation before we consider amendments?
I would just like to publicly thank Ed Cashin and Sal Gonzalez. Without them arranging a meeting between myself, Mayor Brand, and Mayor-elect Dyer to talk to Dr. Peterson, this proposal before us today would not be here. So thank you too for helping arrange that. And thank you very much to Dr. Peterson and his team at UCSF Fresno for the incredible work you do for the community and for the incredible work you're going to do for the city of Fresno in this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Soria, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I want to amend the motion because I do want to include something which I believe is critical. And I did get a chance to talk to Dr. Peterson and Brandy yesterday. So I want to thank you guys for your time. In conversations, I felt that it was important that as part of this project that we do create a minimum anywhere between 5 and 7 people that would sit on a community advisory committee that would work in tandem with the UCSF projects. I think it has to be representative of the folks that we are trying to impact. So that is, I want to amend the original motion, Councilmember Chavez, if you're okay, to include that we create a community advisory committee between 5 and 7 folks.
Yes.
And also, in addition to that, I know that Dr. Peterson has been working with the African American community and also with the immigrant and refugee communities to ensure that this mobile health project is in alignment with their goals, which includes the promotora model in terms of the tracing and so forth, and also the impacts that the African American community is seen disproportionately impacting them in Southwest Fresno. So I want to make sure that that is on the record. I know Dr. Peterson has already met directly with them and has received some information, but I did want to make sure that that was all part and publicly stated as part of the original motion. So that's the amendment. I just wanted to just make a couple comments. Obviously, the city of Fresno, I don't think we've ever really been in this in the business of figuring out how to provide health services, but we are facing unprecedented times, and I believe that this is a great project, and I'm looking forward to the long-term partnership with UCSF so that we can continue to see a turnaround in terms of the outcomes of disparities with brown and Black communities in the southern part of the city. We have seen very clearly that COVID has disproportionately impacted Black and brown families. And so I am hopeful that this will help us not only address that issue, but also impact other health outcomes as a result of the preventative work that's going to happen out of these mobile health clinics, which also include the homeless population that we do have here in the city of Fresno. So I'm proud to be a supporter of this and just look forward to continuing to work closely with UCSF, and then also figure out, where the county is going to be in giving us resources. I did communicate with one of the county supervisors yesterday about having the county also step up and match some of those dollars, because that is under their purview. Public health, it is one of their main responsibilities, and I feel that it would be amazing if they would also step up to the plate and match funding for this project so that it is sustainable in the long term. Those are my comments.
Do you agree to the two amendments?
Yeah, just a quick question for Councilwoman Soria. How would we select those committee members?
I think I haven't thought about, how it would be representative, but I think that you need to have representation from the Black community who, they came in and provided some recommendations, and also from the Immigrant and Refugee Committee that is already doing the work. I am open to how that is established, but I do want to make sure that those groups are part of that advisory committee.
Yeah, and we can meet after and then kind of work through that framework. Yes, Council President, accept the amendment.
Thank you. With that, let's go to Councilmember Carbasi. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank staff and the community that came together to work on this project. And I know Councilmember Chavez has been a strong advocate for more testing throughout the city. And he did bring attention to the fact that by zip code, there are just parts of our city that are testing more positive and need more attention. 93722, which is part of my district, is one of those, but I think this is a great program. I do have a couple of due diligence questions just for my clarification. There is a $454,000 cost at the very last line. It says UCSF required indirect. Can someone just give me a summary of what that's for?
Yeah, so that's the management of the funds, the financial support, the reporting back, the purchasing of the equipment and supplies that we need. So that's a standard sort of overhead thing with the university when taking on a grant of this size.
The reason why I ask, I'm just a bit confused because we have a lot of, key personnel we're prorated we're providing for. We're not only providing salary and benefits for a medical director at $300,000, several RNs, medical assistants, drivers, and that's all. We have to have that. I'm just wondering why there's an overhead cost on top of that.
So again, that's for the administration of the grant. It's for the purchasing. It's for the reporting back that you will require. It's for all of that.
Okay, just a question for administration. Does anyone in the city of Fresno salary alone make $300,000 a year?
Not doctors.
None of us are
I know.
doctors.
We're not doctors. I know. I'm just asking a question. Can I get a yes or no on that? I'm just
Actually,
curious.
we do have a doctor.
City attorney maybe, but I don't think anybody else.
No, I don't think he does. Okay.
If he cashed his leave out, he might.
Last question. There's a couple of equipment that's purchased. There's a couple of vans that are purchased. So what happens at the conclusion of this program? Do those become city assets, or do they stay with the university, or I'm sorry, with UCSF, or what happens to the equipment that's left over?
So the plan
Basically,
is that that equipment would remain with the university and then be utilized as Councilmember Soria talked about to extend beyond the pandemic and be able to use that equipment to deliver healthcare into those same areas of the city.
That's terrific. Okay, thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, council. Is there any other questions from the council on this item?
Yes.
Councilor Butterfield?
Yeah, just Councilmember Soria, the advisory panel, tell me exactly again, what's the function, what's the role?
I think so that the goal is so that the community folks that have been working on these issues in terms of, the preventative and public health issues and the culturally concordant, that the services are culturally concordant, that they're working and giving the feedback to UCSF.
So it would go to UCSF.
Yeah, they're going to be working directly with Dr. Peterson and whoever is leading the project at UCSF to give feedback as to, what is happening in the community, if there needs to be adjustments and so forth. But it's for feedback essentially.
Okay.
So if I might, this is very similar to what happens with federally qualified health centers, where there is a board of directors of a federally qualified health center, and it must contain more than 50% patients that get the services. And it is to provide exactly that feedback to the people providing the services to make sure that we are doing what the community wants us to do.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilmember Chavez, you have the floor.
Just one last question for Dr. Peterson. As part of this partnership, Doctor, I think it would be very helpful to have UCSF as a partner, not just with the work that the scope of work describes, but also with helping the city and advising on what you're seeing out there with regards to data. And as many of you know, many of us are not medical doctors in that field. We have one doctor, but he's a psychologist. But it would be very helpful for the city and the mayor to have this advice from a medical institution. And so would you be agreeable to helping us on that in that effort?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. I would like to offer two friendly amendments. One is to require that UC San Francisco utilize the county infection data and provide services based on that data. I know that they've expressed willingness, but I want to make it a requirement, because when you're dealing with the county, if it's not a requirement, it just doesn't happen. And the second friendly amendment is that when we partner with community organizations, that we don't transfer the cost to these organizations. So we've seen many times where we partner with somebody and we ask them to pay for all operational costs, give us, the facility for free, and then it becomes a financial burden to those organizations, which, by the way, didn't get a federal bailout and have the same financial constraints as any other small business or city government. So I'd like the contract to pay for all costs associated when we're partnering with organizations, so that it's the CARES Act and federal resources paying for the full cost and not burdening our local community partners.
Yeah. Do you need a second, or you just need an amendment?
I'm fine with that.
Friendly amendment, just need both of you to agree to it.
Yes.
All right, with that, Councilmember Carbasi, looks like you have the final word on this.
Thank you, Mr. President. I forgot to get to the point of my question. I apologize about the $450,000, and I do appreciate the explanation. The reason I asked that is I was wondering, given that the program's funding a lot of essential workers that are going to help keep this moving, wouldn't it be more fiscally prudent for this city in using the limited taxpayer dollars we have accessible to us to fund an analyst position or two positions that can fulfill that role. And that would cost a lot less than $450,000. I'm just wondering why that wasn't an option since we're already funding so many positions for purchasing and those types and reporting.
Right. So, I mean, we will follow whatever the contract limitations are that you have for this. That from as a representative of the university, I have to reflect what the university's requests are usually in a grant of this size. If your decision is to fund that in a different way, then we will work with that.
Understood. I get it. Thank you.
All right.
Hi, this is Brandy Nakai.
Randy, I'm sorry. I know I punched up, but it looks like I want to get to a vote. So if we can do a roll call vote now, Council.
Councilmember Beto?
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi?
Yep. Yes.
Councilmember Soria?
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio?
Yes.
President Arias?
Yes.
7-0.
Dr. Peterson, to the team, thank you for giving us today what we've been asking for since this pandemic broke, and that is testing and track and tracing in our most vulnerable neighborhoods to our most vulnerable residents. I'm glad that the city was able to take the lead and that we found a local medical partner that will not only do the work, but continue to advise us during this pandemic that's unprecedented and is costing the lives of way too many of our residents. Thank you again for the time, Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, Council, with that, we'll go to the next item that was pulled. That's item 1Q. Councilmember Chavez, Carbasi, Soria, and everybody else, I think, pulled the item. I do want to thank Dr. Bredefield and Dr. Soria for their contributions and officially recognize that they are doctors in our council.
Not medical doctors, though.
I'm not doctor of the law.
If I'm choking, please call a real doctor.
Capriolio.
Yes. Dr. Capriolio too. If you're choking, remember Chavez, Councilman Bredefield is closest to your office, so he can the mouth to mouth. All right, Council, you have the floor on this item. Just some opening comments from myself, who's the co-sponsor of this with the mayor's office. We've been having conversations about this, status quo budget and continuing resolution, and staff and the city manager covered this. Early on, staff instituted a hiring freeze that ensured that they double and triple checked any positions that were really necessary and essential to fill. There were also conversations for the council, for us, the council, to do something similar citywide. What you should have in your package is our recommendation. It's set in stone, of course, but you have a recommendation for a citywide freeze that's temporary in nature. It goes from June 2nd to August 2nd, if I remember my numbers correctly, Director. And there is a list of exempted positions that staff feels are important to continue to fill during this 60-day timeline. And they can address each of those positions if the council wishes. Of course, we are open to suggestions and questions from the council, but this is just one of the many approaches and actions that we've taken to try and manage the costs and expenditures of the city as we look to potentially adopting a continuing resolution. With that, City Manager, I'll hand it over to you for opening comments before we get to the questions.
Yeah, and Council President, I wanted to thank you too for working with our office last week and kind of editing the resolution so it's palatable citywide. And again, we're doing everything we can to save every dollar right now as we navigate this unprecedented time, and we think it's important to take a pause on hiring before we have to institute any other more drastic measures with staff and other cuts. I have our personnel director here, Jeff Cardell, to go over the resolution and the exempted positions, because we do think there are still positions that we should be filling on a very limited basis. And again, and I know we had this conversation earlier this week, but I could argue that every position in this organization is critical. But again, we're trying to be mindful for at least the 60-day period. So Jeff, do you mind going over what those exempted positions are and what we've done on our side?
Sure, be happy to do that. So what we have done on the administrative side of the organization is since March, as Council President indicated, we have been reviewing all of the requests to conduct recruitments, to make job offers, and have been very judicious about what is absolutely necessary to approve to ensure the safety and well-being of the public and efficient operation of the organization. What has been attached is an Exhibit A identifying for the 60-day period some exceptions or exemptions from the freeze, and those include temporary employees who would be required for the city to open up city facilities that are currently closed due to COVID-19. It would also allow for other COVID temporary employees, summer interns, which is an important program for this organization, police cadets that are graduating from the police academies this July, hiring them as police officer recruits. Also, emergency services dispatchers. As you know, that's a key and critical component to ensuring the delivery of public safety throughout our jurisdiction. And then finally, positions which require a regulatory registration or certification and are necessary to ensure public safety and health. Those are the exemptions. The one other point I'd like to highlight is that while these are exemptions in terms of job offers, in terms of promotions and hiring, that does not exclude us, as the resolution indicates, from conducting recruitments, administering examinations, providing certifications to departments so that they can conduct interviews, so that at the point in time the hiring freeze is expired, they would be in a position to, again, request approval for job offers and fill those positions. That concludes my comment.
Thank you, staff, council. We will now go to the members who pulled the item. Who wants to speak first? Looks like I have Councilwoman Soria.
Thank you, Council President. I have brought up my concerns earlier this week as it relates to delays in some of the capital projects, especially those positions that are not general that will not impact our general fund. So I think that we heard from our Public Works Director in terms of what that would mean. Yeah, I understand that the freeze will happen for 60 days, but I think 2 months can create a ripple effect on those capital projects that we all want to get done. So I'm not in support of it. I also wanted to ask, where is the resolution? Because on Granicus, when I pulled it up, it's not attached. So I didn't get a chance to see the actual wording.
I believe the clerk distributed it earlier this week. And then, and maybe Brianna or Yvonne, if you could distribute that again, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm not going to vote on something that I haven't seen the language on. It wasn't on Granicus. I don't know.
Councilwoman, just to be clear, our city staff did distribute it. It was also distributed as a supplemental. So if you didn't receive it, it's one thing, but our city clerk did distribute it out. So
all I'm saying that it's not on the Granicus, which is what is the public.
I just pulled it up on.
Yeah,
on
we're
the
hearing that.
On mine, it doesn't come out. That's
Okay.
all I'm saying.
And the other thing I would like to point out about your comments about public works and non-general fund positions is our gas tax is down also. So even though it's not a general fund funded position, we do have limitations right now with our SB1 revenue and our Measure C revenue. And I have Director Mosier in here if you have specific questions for him as well.
I don't have specific questions for him. That's kind of my position. I understand your position on that. I think that I've kind of stated clearly my opposition to some specific, those specific positions. If we want to freeze some of the other ones, I'm fine with that, but I'm not okay with impacting some of the capital projects that right now we have the funding for. And I believe that Director Mosier was very clear when he said that the grants that we have in our existing budget that are accounted for actually would pay for the positions. That's what he said on the record earlier this week. And so I want to make sure that those capital projects are moving and we don't continue to see, even if it's a couple months delay, I don't want to see that because it is going to have a ripple effect. So unless you guys want to make changes, currently I'm opposed as drafted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other council members wishing to speak to this item?
Yeah, Council President.
Go ahead, and then it'll be Council Vice President.
Yeah, you know, the reason I pulled this is we're having a conversation about budget with a number of unknowns, right? We don't know what our revenue is going to look like in the future. We don't know what flexibility we're going to be granted by the federal authorities and the funding that they subsequently send. And so I understand the logic and city manager wanting to get clarity on what this looks like, but I don't think the council is in a position yet to fully understand and have a conversation about what the effects are going to be. We essentially not had a line item budget with projections because we can't, and I 100% understand that. But what I want to be cautious about is, you know, the way this is written, you could, for example, have a staff member that your department, and not to sound cliche, but would be deemed essential to the function and the work that you're doing. And so to just have a blanket, you know, order come down and delineate that, I think right now is a bit premature. I think this is more along the lines of what we vote on for the entire budget, whether that's a continuing resolution or a hybrid or just a entirely new budget. I think that conversation still needs a lot more work because as departments are turning in what their scope of work is and what they're projecting here in the near future, with everything changing and telework now being very common, I'm dealing with that in my own office, right? I have staff members that are working from home. They're working in the office certain days. And we don't know what the need's going to be here pretty shortly. So I think for me, it's a little premature to want to nail this down right now. I think let's roll this into the overall budget conversation where we will then have all the data and the information as best as we can and help the council make a decision on that. Thank you.
Council Member Chavez, might I be indulged for a second? There is a provision in the resolution that allows a committee to make decisions that would allow additional hires.
So totally understand that, and I did catch that language in there, Jim. But what I'm concerned about is the fact that we've not had a conversation about, because we're going to go through tiers, so to speak, right? There are going to be employees that we deem essential. There are going to be employees that we deem may be essential, and then there are going to be employees that we deem that are probably not essential to the work that we've been doing. And I think that that language and that conversation needs to happen. And at, you know, it's what now, June 18. I still don't have a crystal clear picture as to what the finances are going to look like for the city of Fresno, but more importantly, what the workload is going to look like for the city of Fresno. And so I'm still deliberating that. And before I move in this direction and authorize this, I think we still need to have more conversations as to what our finances will look like and what we're going to deem to be essential, because at the end of the day, that's going to be a policy call. It's going to subsequently be an HR call as to what our workforce looks like based on the finances that we're going to all agree here. We just had, you know, a number of motions made. We've had numbers of motions made in the past couple of days. We need to analyze what that looks like and then come back and say, hey, this is what our overall budgeting is going to look like.
Council Vice President Capriolio.
Thank you very much. On the item before us, I'd like to include an exemption or exception, and that would be the airport. FYI, I have Kevin on the line to further explain it, but what happens with the airport, it's an enterprise zone, no general fund dollars are involved, but they are under the umbrella of the TSA and the FAA, and they have certain requirements on staffing and filling positions, et cetera. So I would encourage us to include that enterprise zone as an exemption, exception, whatever the correct word is. And if you want to hear from Kevin, he is available.
I do
Thank you,
have
Council Vice
I do
President.
have Kevin here, and I believe that those airport positions could still be considered through this committee that the resolution outlines. But he is here if you have specific questions of him.
Okay,
And I'd
Council.
like to make a friendly motion to exclude or exempt the airport from this resolution. Kevin, if you're there, take it away.
So, Kevin, before you go there, we don't have a motion yet to approve the item. This is just discussing here for the council. So I'm open and hearing a motion from the council. Again, this is our recommendation based on what we've heard. As a reminder, right now, the city manager has the authority to freeze any positions and delay hiring of any positions. It was my belief that the council should weigh in on what positions would be frozen during this 2-month process, and that we set up a process where the mayor's office and city manager would have to work with the budget subcommittee that includes Councilmember Chavez, Soria, and Capriolio if they wanted to create any additional exemptions. But what I was trying to achieve with the city manager is to give the public and our employees clarity on what positions they should continue moving forward and filling and which ones they should press pause until we have either a final vote on the budget or until August 2nd. But again, I'm open to hearing the constructive changes or adjustments that the council so wishes.
I'll make a motion to table to June 25th, Council President.
Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Second by Member Carbasi. All right. Is there any further discussion on this item since it's being tabled?
I would just like to be
Council President, I had my hand up.
Give me a second. Let me go to city manager.
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate that. So I just want to be clear then that since this item is tabled, just so there's no miscommunication, we're going to continue to do the hiring freeze and the holding of merit increases on staff that report to me, and anything that you all put in for internships, increases for your employees, et cetera, we will continue to process as I have been directed in the past. So just to be clear, so we're all on the same page. Fair enough?
City Councilwoman Soria.
Yeah, so I wanted to just amend that motion to table, but I would like to give direction because I think that was part of the conversation that we all had, and I'd like to hear what other folks have to say on those positions that are not impacted by general funds that are covered under the grant dollars. I do not want our capital projects impacted. And so I would like to make sure that we give direction to the city manager. I get it that she wants to do a hiring freeze for all her staff that she has control over. However, I think it's a policy call on our end if we want those capital projects delayed or not. And so I want to, again, for the record, I don't want those capital projects delayed when they're not being impacted by our general fund. So I would submit that those positions are filled in the interim. So can we amend that motion to table it, but to give direction to hire those positions to continue the capital projects to avoid any delays?
Is the maker of the motion amenable to that change?
Yes.
All right. So we have a motion to table the item and give direction to the city manager to continue to fill positions related to the capital projects and that are grant funded. All right, seeing no other discussion from the council, let's do roll call.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio,
Yes.
President Arias.
Yes.
7-0.
All right, let's move forward to the next item on the agenda. Council, it is 10:50. We are done with all the items that were pulled from consent. We will now go to
1K, Council President.
1K was addressed first.
Yeah.
That was the first item addressed. Unscheduled oral communications at 10 o'clock. Number one, it's a hearing to adopt resolutions on the annexed territory and special tax related to Community Facilities District number 11. I will open up the public hearing. From the public wishing to address the council on this public hearing item. If so, identify yourselves and you will be allowed to speak to the council for 3 minutes on this public hearing. We have the first one, Carmen Salazar. Carmen? Carmen, do you wish to speak to the council on this item? If so, unmute yourself. All right, we will move on to the next item.
Council President, some folks were asking whether there was translation services in the meeting because we have some Spanish speakers chimed in.
They should be.
Can the clerk confirm that and check with whoever was?
Yes, we'll check. Let me get through this public hearing item though. Seeing no public comment on public hearing item number one, roll call on this item. City Clerk?
Okay, Councilmember Bredefeld?
Miguel, what is this related to?
The annexation of the territory and levying the tax.
Okay.
The 10 a.m. number one.
Okay. Yes.
Councilmember Chavez?
You start over. I
Okay.
had muted you.
Councilmember Bredefeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi?
Yes.
Councilmember Soria? Council Vice President Capriola?
Yes.
President Arias?
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. Hearing number two at 10 a.m. Hearing to consider the proposed annual assessment of the City of Fresno Landscaping Maintenance District number one. I will open up the public hearing. Anybody in the public wishing to address this 10 o'clock number two item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for a roll call vote.
Motion, right?
Yes, I'm sorry, motion to approve.
Yes.
Motion approved.
So I'll second it.
Okay. Councilmember Bredefeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi?
Yes.
Councilmember Soria?
Yes.
Vice President Capriola?
Yes.
President Arias?
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. The next item is the 10:05 hearing annexation application P19-06018, a application, a pre-zone application. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to this public item? Seeing Dirk, we have identified you. Would you like to address the council for 3 minutes? If so, unmute yourself. All right, Dirk, we'll move on to,
There we go. Sorry.
all right.
Yes, I'm here on behalf of
Go ahead.
Wilson Homes. And the Planning Commission approved the project. We also went to the advisory committee where there was no opposition to the project. We're consistent with the plans and policies. We ask that you approve the project in accordance with the staff recommendation and Planning Commission's action. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Vice President Capriola, you have the floor.
To approve.
Motion to
It's in my
approve. I'll second it. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi?
Yes.
Councilmember Soria?
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriola?
Yes.
President Arias?
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. Council, I'd like to take something just out of quick order. I'm going to go to the 1015 item first. I know the 1010 will have a little more debate. Is the resolution to initiate the Central Southeast Pacific Plan pertaining to approximately 2,200 acres, establish the neighborhood south of Shaw, and the general plan filed by the Planning Department. Planning Department, do you have any additional information to present to the council on this item? If not, I will go to Councilmember Carbasi, since I believe
Chavez. Councilmember Chavez.
Councilmember Chavez.
All right, thank you. Just point of reference, I want to point my colleagues to the map that was enclosed in the PowerPoint presentation. That would be a good visual reference. I want to thank the committee. We've been working on this plan for over a year now. Numerous community meetings over at Mosqueda, a couple of school sites, a lot of robust outreach. I want to thank Drew for his work and Sophia and the team for really nailing this down. I've had a number of conversations with all the stakeholders. I spoke to the committee members yesterday. And so I wanted to make a motion to approve the initiation, but with a couple of modifications. And I've been working with the city attorney. What I want to do, just so council and the public understand, there's a small sliver of light industrial area that was included in this plan. And what I want to do is I want to take that a sliver of light industrial and move it to the big industrial conversation that we're having for South Fresno specific, and then engage as a result of moving those parcels out, engage the community of Calawa, Malaga, and working with doing some additional outreach so that they're part of that conversation as well, and then accept everything else that is in that committee's work. And Doug, if you want to read the parcel numbers so they go on the record.
Yes, I will. And this has been provided in writing to the city clerk as well. So the motion is to approve the initiation with the following change, that the boundary of the Central Southeast Pacific Plan to exclude the following APNs. 48011-014, 48011-029S, 48011-022, 48011-041S, 48011-042S, 48007053, 48007065S, 48005012S, 48005011S, 48005023U, 48005013, 17, 48005016, 48005025U, 48005009, 48005008S, 48005026S, 48005006, 48005003, and 48005010S. This means that with this action, we are not initiating changes to the land use designation of these parcels. I further move to direct staff to include these APNs within the boundary of the South Central Specific Plan instead. That's all.
All right, the motion is made. It is seconded by Councilwoman Soria, by recall.
The subsequent outreach, I want to make sure that we get that on the record with the communities of Calawa and Malaga. I think that needs to be part of the conversation. What we'll end up now with will be a more purposeful and specific conversation about light industrial, especially in that area. And point of reference to the council and the public, that area is where the PG&E plant is, where we have Donagy, the beer distributor, where we have Tapia Brothers Food Processing, a juice company, a laundromat, and an abandoned warehouse that's on the corner of Orange and Church.
All right,
Thank
council. Is there any members from the public wishing to speak to this item? All right, we'll go to Grecia. You have the floor. Please identify yourself and address the council for 3 minutes.
Good morning, council, and thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Grecia Lenes, Council for Justice and Accountability. First, I would really want to extend my appreciation to Drew and all the staff and the consultants who worked tirelessly on this effort. We really appreciated all the engagement opportunities and outreach that they did in order to attract as much and include as many people from the community in this process. I appreciate Councilmember Chavez's leadership in this. We would appreciate, the conversation to exclude that part, those specific APN numbers. Given the amount of community participation in this and engagement and general overall, it was a unanimous support to change those sites from light industrial use to office. I would advise that we bring this back to the community and back to the steering committee just to have that conversation. It's been, I think, since last August, I want to say that the steering committee last met. And so I think this is something that is pretty significant, and we would appreciate just to have the opportunity to have that conversation to move forward, if that's how the community and the committee feels to move forward. Additionally, if the parcels are added into the South Central specific plan, we would appreciate a strong commitment. I don't know if that would be in the form of a resolution or what that would look like, but a strong commitment to engage and prolong the South Central specific plan engagement in order to ensure that we are included these additional communities and these additional residents into that conversation, which have not been so far. Lastly, we would also want to include all of the comments that were made during the Southeast specific plan or the Central Southeast specific plan, move them over into this as well, just because there have been robust conversations around these facilities and the truck uses and what this community wants itself to look like in the next 10, 20, 30 years, which is exactly what the specific plan is creating that opportunity for. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, next person. We have no other public comments. With that, council will bring it back to the roll.
Yeah, no, Council President, just, and Grecia's been really great at working with us. And, that's why I made the comments. I want to memorialize that and make sure that, we're clear about the outreach that will happen in the Caloa community, Malaga, and have them be part of that. Because as it is now, we're engaging the folks that live over by the school, the Orange Community District, but not so much the folks that live there in Caloa. And this is going to be part of their community and what affects them. So I just want to make sure we get that on the record.
All right, with that, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredesen.
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez.
Yes.
Council President.
Excuse me, Council Vice President, you have the floor.
Thank you. A question for Member Chavez. I'm looking at the resolution on our agenda, and it says the plan pertains to our located areas, as quote, established neighborhood south of Shaw. I am south of Shaw personally, my residence I'm in right now, and most of my district is south of Shaw. So I would assume that we will be included in this plan or process in some degree. Is that, it's south of Shaw. I don't know what it's not south of Shaw.
You will be included because you will actually be a voting member of what the plan, final plan looks like, Council Vice President.
And then the improvements and all the things that go with it will include Shaw Avenue South, District 4, as well as District 5?
Yes, we will get you a new airport, Council Vice President.
No, airport is fine. I just need some amenities.
Yes,
like every other district.
Question, yes.
Okay, I look forward to working with you on that. Thank you.
All right, let's continue with roll call.
Okay. Councilmember Esparza.
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi.
Yes.
Councilmember Soria.
Yes.
Council Vice President Capriolio.
Yes.
President Aria.
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you, Council. Now we're going to go to the 10 item. Council, it's a hearing to consider the vehicle miles traveled threshold pursuant to the 743. Do I have a motion from the council?
No. Council President?
Councilwoman Soria, you have the floor.
I just wanted to actually see if we could put it over for next meeting. So motion to table. I need a little bit more time. I didn't have a chance to meet directly with staff to talk about this. I know that, so that's my motion.
I'll second it. Councilmember Carbasi, you have the floor. You gotta unmute yourself, Member Carbasi. We can hear you.
I did raise my hand earlier because I want to actually make an emotion to not approve the plan. I was going to make my case, but if the council member wants to postpone, that's fine. I understand.
All right, council, we have a motion to table. It's been seconded.
Before you
Keep
vote,
second.
is this time sensitive? I'd like to ask.
Give me 1 second, city manager. Let me go to the public first.
Okay.
Is there anybody from the public wishing to address the tabling of item 1010, consideration of adopting the vehicle miles travel threshold pursuant to Senate Bill 743? Grecia, you are being recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Council President Arias. Again, my name is Grecia. I'm with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, and we would appreciate the week delay for next week. We understand this is, as City Manager Kwan was mentioned, it is a time-sensitive item, and as such, we would just like the week extension. So there is still enough time to adopt it by July 1st, just to ensure. At least personally, we want to ensure our communities that we work with have been properly informed. This has been, with all the budget hearings personally here, it's been a little bit hard making sure folks are engaged in every single opportunity that is important. And given the lasting results that adopting this methodology will leave, we want to ensure that folks, especially those who will likely be the most impacted by these what's before you are engaged in this process. So thank you.
Thank you. We register your support for tabling the item for a week. So Member Soria, you have the floor.
That's it. Move to table for 1 week.
Member Carbasi, you have the floor. There's a motion. There's been second. You have the floor.
Is it okay if I make some comments? I know we're going to have the vote.
As long as you don't give us a long delay, because we're going to do this in a week. And just a reminder, next week is the budget. So it's going to be like a 2-hour meeting.
Right. Let me put it this way. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I just want staff to know that this isn't about you guys. You're doing your job, and you're doing a great job. I know a lot of work went into working with the consultant to create this report, and you're following the law, and I appreciate that. SB 743 is an archaic and flawed law, and that's why I want to strongly encourage the next week my colleagues to look into it, to the VMT law, and understand how it's going to impact Fresno, especially in a post-COVID economy. Just real quick, when this bill was created, it was created during the Brown administration 7 years ago. It was so unpopular. The only way they can get it to pass was to last minute in a backroom deal, add it to a Senate bill that was created for something that we all love, to build an NBA arena in Sacramento. And if you're like me and you missed sports during COVID, you understand why they would do that. Because I think and they also created a 7-year delay. And then part of it is because they didn't want to be held accountable for how bad of a bill it was and the impact it was really going to have on the community. The intent was good. Cleaner air, we all support that. We want that. And it's not easy to accomplish that. Every neighborhood in our community in the state should have clean air. But the problem with this bill doesn't factor in technology. It treats you, if you have an electric vehicle, the same as the antiquated, gas guzzling, ozone hole producing car that there can be. And instead of incentivizing people like we do to purchase electric vehicles with tax rebates, it actually penalizes you and forces you to live a certain way. And the problem is we've learned about things like mass transit and super dense housing is that it's a great way to spread a virus. When you think about the subway system in New York, and the bill doesn't take COVID into that. It doesn't take the fact that we have Zoom and great technology now. And, that's already helped to reduce and improve air quality. And I think that's something that's going to stay for a while. But the biggest thing, and for me, the governor made a great, bold goal for this state that he wants to build 3.5 million more houses within 10 years. And that's a wonderful thing. And that means 350,000 more houses a year, every year for 10 years. We're barely over 100,000. So we're missing our goal. The problem with this bill is that it creates barriers and makes housing more expensive, renting housing more expensive that's passed on to the consumer. And what's going to happen there is it hurts, hardworking, tax-paying, middle class and lower income families more than anyone else, because it's going to reduce our housing supply even more, and it makes it more expensive to acquire housing. It's a flawed and bad bill. And I really would ask us to send a message to Sacramento, look over it the next week. I really encourage you to send that message that we support the governor's plan to build more housing, but we're not going to do it on the backs of those that are most vulnerable. And think about this. If people that are living in dense housing projects, as this bill is trying to force us to do. Those are the people that already have the greatest risk and greatest, they're vulnerable because they have health insecurity. So how does it make sense to set them up even more to fail? And that's not right. I think we can get a better bill, and we should send a message to Sacramento, like so many other people throughout the state that are saying, send it back, give us a better bill, something more modern, and then that's something that we can support without doing it on the backs of our hardworking families and our communities across the state. So I
Thank
really
you,
hope.
Councilmember Carbasi. Councilmember Chavez, I'm hoping you can land this very simple task of tabling the item for next week. So please.
I'll land it. I'll save my gunpowder for next week. Just a quick question for legal counsel. Doug, what is the implication for the city of Fresno supporting this and not supporting it? I think that'll be a good informational background for us as we're doing our research and making sure that, you know, we're doing our due diligence.
Well, Talia, our expert, is here, but in short answer, it's if Fresno does not adopt its own standard, then we default to a state standard that's already been approved by the state and which is stricter than what's being proposed.
Okay, so just to clarify and make sure we're all on the same page, the city of Fresno can outline what that requirement looks like. Absent of that, the state guidelines will kick in, right?
Yes, as of July 1st.
Okay, that's it. See?
All right, perfect. Thank you. It looks like it's simple. Local control versus state control. With that, council, we have a motion to table the item, and it's been seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza.
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soya,
Yes.
Council Vice President Caprielio,
Yes.
President Arias,
Yes.
7-0.
All right, council, with that, we get to the city council items, and then there's Councilmember Esparza. Councilmember Esparza, you will have the floor with about 40 minutes before the lunch break. So your first item is a bill introduction for adoption, amending section 2514 of the Fresno Municipal Code in response to COVID-19 pandemic and requires 4 affirmative votes. Councilmember Esparza, you have the floor.
Thank you for that very speedy introduction. I will try to make it quick. What I have here is an amendment to our existing policy, primarily revolving around face masks. This is an effort to prevent the spread of COVID-19, which is happening rapidly in our community. We're seeing a surge right now with almost 3,000 cases here in Fresno County alone. And taking a look at the growing body of evidence on how this disease spreads. Additionally, you know, although we have a mask mandate already here in the city of Fresno, the governor is reportedly considering his own statewide mandate. But we've been ahead of the curve, and I'd like us to continue to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to our ability and our efforts to, again, prevent the spread of COVID-19 here in our own backyard, notwithstanding what other jurisdictions may or may not be doing. So to give you just a clear summary of the different provisions of this amendment, our current language says that you must wear a mask when you are entering business or establishment here in the city. This language would amend that to mandate masks in the course of any business that requires social physical interaction with other people, whether that is inside or whether that is outside. Because again, the growing body of evidence is showing us that that's the primary way through which this disease is spread, person-to-person contact. Also clarifies that it should cover both the mouth and the nose. I mean, obviously these masks don't do us any good, our neighbors any good, if they're hanging on our chin or nose hanging out and we are expelling droplets in the air. Another provision is one that we've seen across other municipalities. This is essentially prohibits the masks that have the exhale valves. These masks were not created with COVID-19 in mind. They're more for, let's say, construction sites. And having a mask with an exhale valve really defeats the purpose of having a mask on because you will continue to expel the air and droplets out of your mask, and the mask is intended to keep it contained. Additionally, other provisions include establishing a separate anonymous reporting line at the city of Fresno for any customer or employee that feels that they are placed in an unsafe environment by their employer. Last piece of this is that either an employer has to take measures to notify all their employees, partners, agents, etc., of a positive case among their employees, or if their employees were exposed by a positive case that walked into the establishment. So quite a few changes there. Open to hearing feedback from my colleagues, and hope you will support, again, these efforts to try to curb the rising number of cases right here in our city.
All right, council member, next, complete your presentation.
I'll make a motion to approve as well.
All right, is there a second for that motion at this time? Councilmember Chavez, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions from my colleague. So a couple of the items they reaffirm some of the stuff we're doing with the eviction prohibition and more. But I wanted to hone in a little bit on the mask. So right as it stands, City of Fresno requires folks to wear into a building or even closed ventilation structure. What is this? I'm trying to kind of understand it in a little bit more simple terms. So what does it actually do for the folks that are watching and didn't read through it?
So, I mean, I just explained, but to clarify, what it would do is expand on our current language, right? So the current language requires it to be worn inside. What I'm proposing here is that we require masks in the course of all physical interaction. May that be outside or may that be inside. Again, based on how COVID-19, how we know, how we're finding out it is spread. So there's a decreased chance of contracting it in a outside windy setting, but not a zero chance. And so if folks are going to be interacting, conducting business, regular course of business, even if it's outside, they ought to protect each other by continuing to wear their masks in the course of social interaction. This is not saying that you're by yourself jogging or taking a walk with your family that you're supposed to wear a mask. This is in the course of regular physical interaction with other people.
So what would this look like for code enforcement? Maybe Doug can answer that. Doug, how would you enforce this ordinance on folks? Is it businesses, individuals? Kind of walk us through what that will look like as it reads.
Well, before we answer that question, I mean, how are we enforcing any of these measures right now? I think there's a lot of rules we have on the books. I think this body and the mayor have collectively made a decision not to pursue too much proactive enforcement at this time. But we are, with the laws that we're passing, sending a strong message about the severity of this disease.
Right, and I understand that, Councilmember Esparza. The only question I have is, so for example, with the hotline that we're doing, so somebody calls in and says, hey, my employer's not protecting the employees and things of that sort. What would be the enforcement piece of this ordinance, I guess is what I'm asking.
So the public already has this ability. What we're doing is outlining a specific line that encourages them to be anonymous, right, without fear of retribution, losing their job or being outed, if you will. So I mean, the public already has this ability. We're just explicitly outlining this is the phone number you would call. You have the ability to remain anonymous, and I think code would respond to it reactively as they are doing with current complaints. So I mean, it's not really changing the course of how we're responding, just giving again the public a better channel for it.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to understand it a little better, because I do have concerns over what you referenced, Councilmember Esparza, with regards to the cases going up. I've seen some pictures that were pretty troublesome this past weekend, and some local bars in the Tower District in Southeast with regards to people not abiding by the guidelines and requirements that were passed down. And we know that that's not a good thing for, you know, the transmission of this disease. And we just had a presentation by UCSF telling us that, you know, they don't see an end in sight right now as it stands. And so I'm trying to be very cautious and purposeful as to how we go about reducing that. The only thing I do have concerned about is what the enforcement of this looks like, because we know that there are going to be people that are just very stubborn and just choose not to follow the rules. And so I don't want to end up in a situation where, you know, the police department's called out or code enforcement called out, and this blows up to where, you know, there are some people that would want to magnify that and make the city look bad. So I want to be very thoughtful about what we're doing, and, you know, I'm open to hearing the conversation from some of my other colleagues.
Sure. Yeah, and I appreciate those concerns. I don't think this language changes any of that. Again, we're laying out rules, regulations. We have quite a few on the books already, and unless you are open to sort of tightening some of that enforcement and being more proactive about it, I think it remains status quo as things are. But Code is welcome to chime in, and I'm open to your suggestions.
Well, and you know, part of the section K that I really picked up on was the bars and taverns. That's honestly the one that I have the biggest concern with, because we know that when folks are drinking, they're not really looking at this. And so I like to see an effort by our code enforcement on notifying these bars that they need to be supportive and work with what the situation is, because if we get, you know, God forbid, another uptick in cases, and we have to, you know, for whatever reason, tell folks that we got to shut down again, I think that would be a extremely detrimental effect to the economy, to people, but more importantly to people's health. And so I'm really curious. I want to hone in on this section on bars and taverns and what that looks like. But I'm open to hearing some conversation more from my colleagues.
Yeah, Councilmember Chavez, just one clarification before we move on to our colleagues. The changes, the amendments here are listed in sections L and L through N, L, M, and N. I don't believe or L and M, I don't believe I altered or asked for amendments on the rest of the provisions. So only L and M, the underlined portions, are the proposed changes I'm making. Everything else was pre-existing emergency order per the mayor with our support.
Well, just preliminary, I'll flag this for you, Councilor Esparza. It might be helpful to, you know, in consultation with our UCSF folks, now that we have a medical person on board, and kind of get what would be some of those triggers, you know, whether that looks like COVID positive numbers, a certain amount, certain areas, or maybe through their contact tracing where the sources are with this. I think that would be a good starting point. And, you know, the hotline number, I think, would be a good idea, but I don't know if we want to break Councilmember Carbasi's motto of snitches get stitches, 1-800-snitching. But I'm open to hearing some of the comments from my colleagues.
Okay, Councilmember Bredefield, you have the floor.
Okay. So first of all, I want to commend Councilmember Esparza. I know that you've been leading an effort and take this very seriously, as we all do. It's a serious disease, and it spreads pretty easily. And I know you've been leading that effort. So I want to acknowledge that. I mean, we differ on a number of things, as you well know. And I think that our differences are reflected here as well. You mentioned outdoors, that you want people to wear masks when interacting with other people, whether indoors or outdoors. So are you wanting to require people now to wear masks outside? Because right now it's been all indoors. It's been entering a business. Are you now wanting to change that and make it where when you're outside, okay, you've made a distinction, okay, by yourself, but if you're with people, now is this new rule, this new resolution, this new law requiring people to have masks when they're outside?
So the short answer, it is not a blanket requirement to wear a mask when you're outside. But I think what it does is it sort of closes a loophole and plugs a gap. It's foolish to think that all business, right, of any type, nonprofit or private sector or government, it's foolish to think that all the business is conducted on the inside. There's plenty of human interaction and social interaction that happens in the outside. So there's a lot of business that sends us on our way to interact with others. We ourselves at City Hall, we stand outside in a circle of 5 people and have conversations. And construction workers, work right next to each other. I mean, there's just a number of different sort of loopholes in the regular course of business that provide for people interacting and talking to each other on the outside. And I just believe if we're going to have if we're going to continue to proceed with reopening the economy, these different sectors, that we ought to make sure that people are protecting each other by wearing a mask whenever they're interacting with each other. So,
okay,
it's not a blanket requirement to wear one outside.
Okay, but it is confusing, and it will be confusing for our citizens, our residents, when we have this outdoors, because it won't be clear. So if 2 people are walking in a neighborhood and they're together, does that require now a mask? Because right now it doesn't require a mask. You allude to business. I get it specifically with business. You walk outside doing a business. You're on a construction job, although that's still unclear. But are you saying that 2 people walking, 3 people walking together in a neighborhood are now going to be required to wear a mask?
That is not what I'm saying. What I'm referring to is just, again, in the regular course of business, right, to all of our employers. I think we've come to a consensus that it's not feasible to sort of monitor the individual actions, right? But if you're an employer and you're sending your folks out, right, which many employers do, even us at City Hall, right, we don't sit in our offices all day. We're out and about in the community, doing things, talking to folks. So no, it is the root of this is with respect to the employers.
Okay. And so, I would differ again on the outside, because I think it's been clear from the scientists that have said COVID-19 dies out with hot weather when it's outside. So it raises those kinds of issues again. The second thing for me is this, you call it a reporting hotline number. I'll call it a snitch hotline because it's calling and snitching on employers or employees and calling some 800 number to snitch on people. And I don't think this is where we want to go. I mean, I just think this is far exceeding responsible government. It sets a terrible precedent. It was what went on in New York City with de Blasio setting up 800 numbers for people to call and rat out other people. And I just don't think that's where we want to go. And what happens are, yesterday or the day before, we were talking about the dog park police, and now we're going to be into the mask police. And I think the police got enough responsibilities other than this. And so I'm not going to support, a snitch hotline. And so I have concerns about that. And then you allude to the administrative citation. So I'd like to ask our city attorney, what would be the administrative citation if there was a snitch hotline set up and somebody called that number to snitch on people? What's the penalty?
If there were a violation of the ordinance, the administrative citation could start as low as $250 and then escalate for the business. It's not as to the individuals.
Okay, 250 to what? I mean, how does it escalate? What is it?
Ultimately, for that type of fine, is $250, $500, and $1,000 for the subsequent violations.
Okay, and so I felt with our businesses, as I wanted them to be able to open up following the CDC guidelines much earlier than they have. They've been penalized. We've had code enforcement lean on them, and now I think Councilman Carbasi or others have come to remove those citations. Not talking about the price. I think we all support that. So my fear is we would create these fines again at some point. rescind them because we feel that ultimately perhaps it's unfair or it's too heavy-handed, which is what I believe. And then the last thing is, in second, you allude to the employer notifying all employees of possible exposure to 24 hours. Confidentiality. But I have a question. There's a lot of education associated with that security in terms of confidentiality issues. The person who is exposed, raises concerns. Do you have any concerns about those kinds of issues? Or that requirement of being there and somehow city Fresno being exposed to some liability because this potential.
Well, I think potential risk is hard to other types of health confidential issues. I mean, there'll be an obligation to keep these issues confidential to the extent city employees have the information, as with many other health issues.
Okay, well, it raises some issues because I can tell you, being in health with HIPAA requirements, confidentiality issues, they're complex. The laws are complex, the rules are complex, and it's there are many minefields associated with confidentiality issues. And I just think we need to be careful. We need to be careful of requirements we set up and the confusion it would create for a prospective employer and what their obligations are. So anyway, that's all. I can't support this as it is today for the reasons I outlined. Again, I appreciate your efforts, Councilman, and I respect them, but we differ.
Sure. Just a couple of your comments. I know you support it, but just for the outside, you're absolutely right about the research showing again a decreased transmission rate on the outside. My logic behind this is, I mean, we figured out largely how it spreads, and that's the person in contact. And I don't know about you, but if I knew someone was affected, I would not want to stand and talk to them whether I was inside or outside, and if we were, right, we just don't know. It's the asymptomatic component of this is what really complicates controlling this disease, and so it's a precaution. And so these amendments are being proposed in light of what we have learned, but also all that we still don't know, essentially. And then with respects to, and I didn't mean to laugh in your face at your comments about the snitch line and the dog police. When you said that the other meeting, I thought of the show Paw Patrol that my daughter watches from time to time. They're saying that, but with respect to that, I think us as a city, us having to take all these different actions that we're doing and me proposing these amendments, I mean, this is all because we're not getting a ton of action at the higher levels of government from on up and what needs to be done. And so I think we're protecting our most vulnerable workers out there when we're providing a line for folks to call in and say, hey, we're not being required to wear a mask. I feel unsafe at work. And I think it errs on the side of helping those types of folks who don't have the ability to sit here in my dining room and work from home. So it's those
outside City Hall.
I mean, it all applies. All employers, City Hall.
Oh, I thought you're outside City Hall right now.
But it would apply to City Hall too. Just give them the ability to say, hey, and I know we're only enforcing the most egregious violations at this point. So if code did walk in and responded, I mean, I suspect, I won't speak for Doug, but I suspect if it was one person, they might correct it. If it was none of the employees wearing them, there probably would be some consequences, as there would be now. So we're not really changing anything except just saying, hey, there's a designated spot where you can feel free to, lodge the complaint. And you want to, I think, all entitled to a safe work environment. And going back to work during this pandemic. So I just want to address those couple of things. And
thank you, council member. If I may go to Councilwoman Soria.
Thank you, Council President. I understand what Councilmember Esparza is trying to do. I do want to be proactive. I know that the state is already talking about a potential statewide mandate or requirement. I'm also interested in seeing that local folks are following some of these guidelines to prevent. What we've seen is that we have seen a real, I think, a substantial increase in ICU visits, and I don't want to be in a situation where we have overwhelmed our system. I think that's why the city has generally been proactive. However, I do agree. I think maybe bringing it back this next week, having Dr. Peterson chime in, I think that he did make some comments. And I think that he could help us through, the health questions that folks have, and to answer some of those, misnomers that are out there about the heat and, the covering inside and outside, to give us some guidance. So if that's okay, Councilmember Esparza.
Well, I mean, I just like every single emergency measure we've taken, I think the quicker we act, the more lives we save and the more infections we prevent. But if that's the will of this council, certainly happy to hear it next Thursday with the input of our new resident physician.
And I do want to get to the issue, as Councilmember Chavez, he pointed out some folks that are being, in my opinion, pretty careless in their business, in allowing and not practicing social distancing. Folks were snitching on businesses this past weekend as people went back to the bars and the clubs, and they're not being the 6 feet social distancing, not wearing any coverings. I've actually seen people at restaurants, and it makes me not want to go back, not enforcing, people even walking up and wearing face masks at restaurants. So I understand what you're trying to do, but I think that coming back, because I think we do have to address the issue that is at hand.
Yes, and I appreciate that. I've had my own fair share of sort of anecdotal experiences, just being out and about, and even throughout shelter in place, right? I continue to purchase from our local businesses, and I was out and about, and I've seen the transition through time as we've begun to go into phases and reopen the economy in different sectors. So just like yourself, I mean, I have had too many bad experiences, and I don't work at these places, so I can't imagine what the employees of some of these establishments feel like. Is that a formal motion to table the item, Councilmember Soria?
Before we consider motions, can we go to Council Vice President Caprillo, let him speak? Go ahead, Council Vice President, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you. It's very interesting. I think we already have a hotline, and I don't know if we need another hotline or another hotline, but I think we've got this pretty well under control, generically and generally speaking. But I see abuse from competitors and people that are just trying to get even, or whatever the issue might be, and abuse this. So I'd like to hear more, as Member Soria indicated. But right now it seems like we've got plenty of coverage at this moment. And I don't want to over kill or over inundate our code department, because they have so many items and issues on their plate now. So I'm reluctant to support this, but I'll keep an open mind if you like to set it over till next week or thereafter. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Esparza, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Council Vice President. I would respectfully disagree that us here at the City of Fresno, all the way up to the top leadership in our nation, has any of this under control at the moment, based on the trends and infections, deaths on a daily basis. But we'll continue to have the conversation. Again, to reinforce for those folks who brought up the concerns about enforcement, this does not include any new provisions on enforcement. So I'm open to the conversation about having, about the enforcement, but there are no new provisions. So I will amend my motion to table this item until the June 25th meeting, 1 week today. I'd like it back on the agenda for further discussion.
Thank you. There's a motion, it's been seconded. Any members from the public wishing to address this council on this item? We have person identified. Carmen, would you like to address the council on this item? Oh, it doesn't look like we have her. All right, council. Before we go to roll call, I just want to make out a couple of points. One, I know council member Bredefield mentioned the snitch hotline. I would note that we already have 3 of those. It's called Code Enforcement 311 and 911. We tell residents every single day to report violations to Code Enforcement, to 311, and to the police department. So let's be cautious with just, indicating that people are snitching. We're actually asking our residents to be the eyes and ears and keep everyone safe and make sure people are maintaining their houses up to code. Secondly, I would say that this is a necessary conversation because we've had some businesses, frankly, be very irresponsible in the reopening. And I think from my approach, the best way to handle that is to be very direct and provide them a warning that we've gotten the complaints and that we're going to be following up if they continue to be irresponsible. And since we're being direct, I'd like to point out Bobby Salazar's, The Standard, and other restaurants that clearly are violating any social distancing and any protective stuff. So I would ask those businesses to, again, remember what the guidance is. If they are responsible and they're opening in operations, it puts a whole city's reopening plan at risk. And the last thing we want is to have to turn the key back, or as they would say, the light switch back, because of a couple of folks who have been irresponsible and are completely ignoring some of the rules. So I would just ask Code, as we get complaints, follow up, educate the businesses, and if they don't respond with information, we need to pursue next steps, because I personally don't want to allow one business, one bar, to put the whole city's reopening at risk. People have lost their jobs, their livelihoods, and their lives, and no one business has a right to, put the rest of the city in danger. So with that, roll call, council.
Councilmember Bredefield?
Oh, this is for the delay?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi?
Yes.
Councilmember Soria?
Yes.
Council Vice President Caprielio?
Yes.
President Arias?
Yes.
7-0.
Council members, we are 15 minutes away from lunch break. Councilmember Esparza, we have the final item. Would you like to proceed with this item now, or would you like to hear it at 1:30?
Let's go ahead and knock it out right now. Again, I'll try to be brief. What we have here are amendments to our existing cannabis framework. As we proceed with the application process and begin to issue permits, either later on this year or early into next year, I'd like for this body to make a commitment to workers in this, what is supposed to be a pretty lucrative industry, and establish some workplace standards for these folks. So the proposed changes to our framework here is to change the threshold for a labor peace agreement to be signed from 10 employees down to 5 employees. Additionally, requires a workforce plan that commits to at least a 30% local hire requirement, so 30% of the workforce. Commitment to offer either apprenticeships or continuing education for workers to grow in their fields, no pun intended there. And of course, a commitment to paying a living wage. There is also additional language in here that is not necessarily new. This is with respect to a Cal OSHA training requirement, 30-hour course that is required, I believe, at the state level already. And we would just be codifying that into our local ordinance, but that does not necessarily change the requirement. So again, open to questions. These are fairly straightforward. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve this item.
Council, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
All right, let me go to public input first before we continue. Anybody from the public wishing to address the item, please punch up. First one online is Katie Maples. You have the floor.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Good afternoon, Council President and members. My name is Katie Maple, and I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs and Compliance for Perfect Union. We are one of California's oldest legal cannabis companies, and we pride ourselves on being one of the few that have an active collective bargaining agreement with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. I sent in a letter with our full comments, so I'll be very brief and just say that we believe strong labor protections benefit workers, employers, and the local economy. This ordinance is a common sense next step toward creating an equitable cannabis economy in the city of Fresno. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Dylan. Dylan, you've been unmuted. You have 3 minutes to address council on this item. Dylan?
How's my audio?
Yes, perfect.
Good afternoon, or almost good afternoon. Good to be with you all. I think we all know each other on a first-name basis. Dylan Savory, I'm the Executive Director of the Labor Council for our 4 counties in the Central Valley. I did send a letter yesterday as well. Hopefully it reached you all easily. I would strongly speak in favor of this ordinance. Obviously, we are the folks that push for fair working conditions, living wages, and make sure industries are treating their workers fairly and righting the wrongs for bad employers. We all know that bad employers in our community are really a drain on the social safety net. And we know that this particular industry has a high likelihood for big profits, but has a equal high likelihood for law enforcement to be needed to be around if we do not professionalize the market. So coming from the Labor Council, we are urging you to adopt this ordinance. We'd like more people in the city of Fresno to have living wages, more people to have a voice on their job. And frankly, unions are the way to get that done. So I'm just urging you to read my letter if you have not. Support the United Food and Commercial Workers efforts in this regard. They are the leading organization statewide when it comes to fair cannabis worker regulations. So thank you for your time, and I urge a yes vote on this.
Thank you. Next person is Nicole. Nicole, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President Arias. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. Thank you again, fellow council members. Nicole Trujillo Rice. I'm the Political and Legislative Director for the United Food and Commercial Workers, Local 8. And our local union represents nearly 35,000 union members in various industries, including the legal cannabis industry. And we're in full support of amending the current cannabis framework. Broader and more defined labor and safety requirements, such as those proposed in this amendment, ensures responsible applicants will be on a level playing field, and it'll make it easier for the city to identify responsible operators who will adhere to its labor, workforce, and environmental standards and best practices. And I want to highlight and make it clear that this proposal does not preclude operators from applying. It simply sets the bar for the types of jobs that will be created. Countless cities and other counties throughout California have adopted these same standards. And now more than ever, we should be focused on quality job creation with the unemployment numbers continuing to grow and the reality that certain jobs and industries just simply won't recover from the global pandemic. So we should be welcoming this opportunity to create good jobs with stable employment. And I can tell you that the UFCW has a deep understanding of how to make the cannabis industry work well for everyone involved in it. We have a long and proud history of advocacy for workers, their families, and the communities they serve in the other highly regulated sectors, such as agriculture, pharmaceutical, distillery, manufacturing, and processing. These are all industries that we currently represent. And just as we've done for those industries, our union has been instrumental in shaping the policies on the local and the state level that allow workers to organize without fear of intimidation, promote health and safety standards, highlight career pathways, and protect consumer safety within the cannabis industry. So, I think it's vital to consider the fact that while the newly legal cannabis industry has existed in California for a very long time, it does have a history of a legal nature. And that means in many cases, a culture exists that works against concerns like worker safety. And this culture is going to go away overnight. It's time for work to new, even more patients.
We lost Nicole.
Hazards.
All right, it looks like we had a misconnection there. Sam Frank, you have the floor. Sam, you have the floor.
Hi, good morning, Council President Arias and members of council. I would just like to, my name is Sam Frank. I'm with the Fresno City Employees Association. I would like to express our support for the United Food and Commercial Workers position and the Central Labor Council's position on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion has been made. Is there a second from the council as we return back to the council for discussion?
Yeah, I second it, Council President.
All right, thank you, Council.
Question, no.
We have Council Chavez up first and then Councilmember Soria.
Yeah, just for a question for Councilmember Esparza, for section 1 of the social policy, I'm fully supportive of the labor agreement. I think UFCW has done a great job in really outlining what those working conditions will look like for not just folks in the cannabis, but in the other food processing areas and markets. But the question is with regards to the options that we have here. So employment, each applicant shall be required to hire individuals of minimum 1/3. I just want to make sure we're clear. These are all options that the employers will have, right? It won't be prescripted like you have to hire one from each. It would just be a combination of those options for them. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I'm looking. I'm trying to scroll down and find the section, but yes, that is the intention.
Okay, because it rolls down on subsection of social policy, section 1, subsection 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where you could have an option of hiring a veteran, unemployed, receiving public assistance. It's not prescripted to where they have to hire one of each. You can pick from those options, correct?
That is the intention.
Okay, all right. That's the only question that I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Chavez, just for the record, our legal counsel confirmed your statement and Councilmember Esparza's position on it.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Soria, you have the floor.
I'm good.
Thank you. Any other council members wishing to speak to this item? All right, there's first, there's been a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Redfield,
No.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Karbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Caprielio,
I'm sorry. Councilmember Caprielio, go ahead.
I already said yes, but I'll say yes again.
thank you. Council President Arias.
Yes, the item passes 6-1. Thank you, council. We're going to now break for lunch. We will be back for closed session at 1:30. So we'll see you at 1:30.